So today I want to talk about a scary topic because, well, Halloween is upon us. So what is the scary topic? And that is investing. Why is investing scary? Well, investing is scary because it has risk. And I encounter a lot of people that kind of feel like investing isn't for them because of this risk. They don't know what they're doing. They feel like they're in the dark. And that's eventually just puts them in this boat where they feel like it's something that's very hard to do. They're scared to get started, and I can kind of see where they're coming from. Like I probably was in a situation where I never knew much about investing when I first started. But it's one of those things you just work through. You make your first investment because, I mean, these days it's incredibly simple. You can make an account in the whim of like 5 or 10 minutes. Look up a stock that you know really well, put a bit of money in there, and you could own a stock in a matter of hours these days. So it's very different from when I first started, where the platform was pretty, complicated in some sense. Like, if you've ever used like Interactive Brokers and you look at the old style TradeStation platform, it's not like as straightforward as these days, where you click on a company, you put in the dollar amount. Back then, it's like you had to know your ticker symbol, and then you had to put a quantity and the price that you wanted to buy it at. And to a extent it gives you some degree of control because you're putting all the details in yourself, rather than these days where you just put the dollar amount and just specify if you want to do a market value or a limited pricing that you would do. And yeah, like things have changed dramatically thanks to technology, and I have noticed so many more people get into investing. But I still really notice a big majority of people still probably don't get into investing. They're either not into it at all, though, at the end of the day, it is part of your financial future to be part of it. So it is one thing you probably do want to focus on. But, a lot of people do not feel like, it's relevant to them at the moment, or they don't know enough and they're just scared about it. And it's okay to be scared about something you've never done. Like, I can imagine a lot of things that I haven't done that I will be scared myself. And I'm just probably in a situation where I actually love this financial stuff, whereas a lot of people, financial things cause headaches, it causes discomfort, it causes a bit of anxiety, and that's normal. So when you have these feelings, it's very, very normal. It's like the first time you ride a roller coaster. You're anxious. You're kind of feeling uncomfortable, but once you get going, it's a thrilling ride. There's a lot behind it. There's a lot to learn, and there are ups and downs. Remember, it is a roller coaster. But I think as long as you stay in the long run, you do end up on level ground. And you do come out a lot better than when you started, right? Just don't get caught up in those situations where you're very impatient. You just want to find a quick way to make money. Those situations don't really benefit you because you kind of put yourself in much higher risk. I think they look at the statistics. If you were to trade for like a day, your chances are like half and half, so 50% success rate. But if you extend it to something like a month, your chance of success is like 66%. And if you extend it to like 10 years, it's like 80%. And if you extend it to like 20 years, it's like basically 100% on your return, that you would get a return, that you would come out positive. So the longer your time frame is, the higher the chance of your return that it's going to be, right? So when a lot of people get started investing, they want to get the most for the shortest amount of time, and that basically means you're putting yourself in such high risk. So that's something that I'd never advise you to just do, especially if you're starting. You don't have the experience to just immediately jump into something that's high risk. Of course, everyone kind of views things, the stock market, like the lottery. You put money into it, you hope things doing really well, and then what happens? Like, do you just take the money and leave? You probably wouldn't. It's kind of like that mentality, the minute you've done well of something, you just want to continue doing that, right? So you might as well do it off a much more steady foundation where the risk is lower and your return is more, stable. Not really like guaranteed. I don't think you ever get situations where things are guaranteed. You might get a term deposit and that's potentially just like that's guaranteed, but in the stock market, because return is higher, anything where your return is higher, your guarantee goes a bit lower. Nothing is guaranteed after that. So yeah, I guess that uncertainty is what basically causes everyone to be, feeling a bit scared about the stock market. Yeah, like I could probably walk down the street and if I ask someone about the stock market, chances are they have no interest in it. They don't really want to talk about it because, they're not invested into it. But, the stock market, it kind of revolves around our life. Everything you do connects back to the stock market, especially in a financial way, of course. So yeah, like if you look at your insurance, when you pay your premiums, what does it do with the money? It goes into the stock market. When you have your, say, like 401k, that goes into the stock market. When, money you put in the bank, or they invest it in many different ways, and one little proportion of it is the stock market as well. So eventually, all the money that is connected to you kind of finds its way into the stock market, and yet you fear it directly, whereas indirectly it's all around you. So that's the kind of thing. It's a scary topic, but you're just kind of trying to live in a bubble where you're trying to be oblivious to it when it's something that can actually give you a huge advantage, particularly if you're got financial goals or being financially independent, or you're saving up towards a house or other financial goals. Being able to get that higher rate of return just gives you a bit more advantage when it comes to doing what you want in your life. So that's the thing. Taking an interest in your own financial future is one of those things that you should really be doing, rather than just going, oh well, I'm happy, I'm comfortable of what I'm doing. You could be doing a job, it is taking a lot of your time, or you have a family as well, and that's also taking your time. So it is that part where you don't have that much time, but I think it's worth learning. It's one of those things that you can pick up and then just learn little increments as you go, and chances are enough companies that if you invest in those companies for the long run, you would do substantially better than if you were to just put your money in a bank, or some lower rate return on investment. Everyone's different, of course. Everyone has their own circumstances, and you have to know why you need a certain amount of money, why how long you can invest for. And the risks you can take, of course. If you're like in retirement and you need a steady income, then maybe the stock market is a bit risky. But still, you might consider making an allocation towards it, particularly if you fear inflation. Inflation is one of those things that's just going to really eat at your money. Particularly in this climate where governments are printing money like crazy. But you might find gold is more your type of investment, where you want to just put it into something more like a safe haven. And yeah, like that's fair enough as well. So like stock market's not necessarily for everyone, but I'd say majority of people would benefit from it, rather than vice versa. Yeah, so I think it's just one of those things. It's a scary topic, but all things are scary. But it's just a matter of making a start. And yeah, like I think when I wasn't investing, I didn't know how to invest. But when I did start, it didn't actually seem that difficult. It didn't actually seem that daunting, and it was just a matter of just learning about it. So yeah, like it's one of those things. You just one day you confront it, and then you just wonder what you had to be scared about, because there wasn't much to be scared about. And it's like most things in life, you don't have a lot to be scared about, but because you haven't done it before, then probably you're scared about it because you haven't done it, and that's just a normal way of life. Lack of experience, lack of skill, everything's learnt. Everything is honestly just learnt. And one of the best ways of learning is, say, going on YouTube, looking up videos, reading more books, talking to people that do invest in the stock market. That's probably one of the most helpful things that's available to you, where you can talk to people who have invested in the stock market, and you can kind of ask them to run through the process of you. And I think that gives you a lot of confidence. It's like riding a bike in a sense. If you've never ridden a bike might seem daunting because it's just like a bike itself can't stand. If you put a bike on its two wheels without that stand, it just falls flat. And then now you're going to put your body weight onto it and ride the bike, So it's one of those things. It's going to look daunting when you're just looking at it as it is, but once you start doing it, it's actually not that bad. So, the only thing that's scary is not actually doing it, and not actually getting the experience. I think the biggest risk of not investing is not investing, because you're basically limiting yourself to much lower returns of capital, of course. But of course you want to do it in a steady way rather than just trying to go for these one-off opportunities that might make you money, or it could lose you a lot of money. So I think you kind of want to do a bit of research into it, especially the research into how the effect of compounding works. Compounding is an incredible effect, and you would do really well if you understand how compounding works and you use it to your advantage. It's like, how does a man like Warren Buffett succeed so well? It's because he invested early and he used the power of compounding to help him succeed. And I think that's what you should be aiming for. You should be aiming to succeed with the power of compounding. I think you'd probably, like these days, people are more forced to find a higher rate of return, particularly with interest rates being extremely low. So, if you feared for, how you might, live in your future, where you need a certain amount of income to maintain your standard of living, and these days, getting interest from, the bank just doesn't cut it, then all of a sudden you have to find a rate of return that basically, is going to help you live. And I think the way we're heading is interest rates are inherently just going lower and lower and lower. You only have to ask your parents or your grandparents, and they will tell you how extreme interest rates were in the past. And they're probably surprised how low interest rates are currently. And interest rates probably just basically, as time goes on, probably will go lower and lower and lower. Of course, it will go high and then low, then high and low, high and low, but eventually it keeps going lower in a trend kind of thing. Like if you're retiring and you're going to rely on something like a term deposit and not have any investments, then it potentially kind of puts you in a really bad situation. So it's kind of like, no matter what age you are right now, it's one of those things you've got to consider. How much money do you need to retire? How much money do you need to grow that money in order to compensate for, say, your loss to inflation? Because things get expensive. Things get inherently very expensive. So I'd say you want to consider these things. And if Halloween teaches us anything, the only thing that we really fear is fear itself, right? So I'd say, if you're not investing, really start thinking about making a move into investing. If you've made some investments but you still don't know much about investing, I'd highly implore you to go research and look into it a bit more. There's plenty of material online, and it's just a matter of spending time. Like, it's not a terribly complicated thing, but it's one of those things that you do have to spend the time, If you don't have a financial background, of course it's going to take a bit more time than the average person. Like particularly if you're not interested, if you're not a numbers person, I don't think the math behind it is that difficult, to be honest. Like, I think if you can read financials for a company, which is like very, very basic accounting, which will also help you in many things in life, and also just be able to calculate a rate of return, how much you need from that, and in making sure you're just not overpaying for stuff. And yeah, I think you'll be in a pretty good situation. So yeah, I think if you've got any questions, feel free to post below, or I'm always interested to hear other people's perspectives, particularly your story about investing, how you got started. That's always an interesting part, or what you need to learn, anything about you is always interesting to read. Until then, good luck investing, and I hope you find some time and you reflect on this, and you actually make that pursuit into investing, and then I think you'll just be better off putting that time in, actually learning all the skills it takes to invest. And I think you'll find it's probably the best investment ever. Like, as Warren Buffett says, the best investment is actually in yourself. So invest in knowledge, invest in books, and then basically, you have your knowledge, you execute, and you're better off for the future. You don't want to be, into retirement and then decide the bank's not giving you enough interest on your money, and now you have to seek a higher rate of return. And if property doesn't give it to you, then you're going to have to learn the stock market eventually. There are people that have gotten by, without ever touching the stock market. But from, how I've seen things, a lot of people jump into the stock market, particularly at an older age, because they haven't learnt, so it takes a lot more time at that, because the learning curve is kind of harder, because the older you get, sometimes the harder it is to grasp these concepts. Do yourself the biggest favor ever, and just get started. And don't let fear, don't let anxiety, don't let discomfort stop you from learning anything new. You should actually embrace it, because at the minute you embrace it, it actually becomes a feeling of excitement. When you start something, that excitement where something's very new for the very first time, but you embrace it, is actually a really enjoyable feeling. And one day you will miss that, because there's not that many things that you're going to start and you're going to enjoy as much as these topics. Like, for me, investing is such an enjoyable topic. That, of course, you probably have other topics that you find enjoyable. And that's the thing, starting things for the very first time, there's just this real beauty about it, where you kind of go, it's such a, you get to explore it, and you get to find these new things, and in a way it's very exciting. So I think it's one of those things you just really want to give a try, and then just continue to explore. Like, I've been investing for so many years, yet it's one of those things that I always constantly try to explore. Like, I don't try to think, oh, I know enough so I can stop. For me, it's about continuing to know. Like, I sometimes just repeat materials, because, like, if you read one book, you've probably read another book. But I always try to search for that little bit extra of something that I don't know, and that has always continued to benefit me. I always continue to research companies. As you can see by the videos I make, there is no company that I will not research, because I like that that challenge. I like to jump into a new industry, and sometimes it's really insightful just learning all these different snippets of information about these companies. I don't think I ever see myself stopping this, and I see the beauty in it, and I hope one day you can too. Until then, enjoy Halloween and good luck investing.